Hello everyone! It's been a while since I did one of these, hasn't it? For those of you who don't know, I've done a few CD reviews in the past, including 2 Best of Godzilla music compilations, which were a lot of fun. I ended up getting a few requests for a discussion of the music of 2016's Shin Godzilla, and I thought that was a great idea. It's taken me a while to get around to doing it, but here it is. The way these videos work is I just sit here and talk about the music. I don't play any of the music unless I feel it's absolutely necessary because I don't want to get into any copyright trouble. But I do occasionally do my best to recreate the music and try to demonstrate sections that I'm talking about using my own questionable vocal skills. So here are some thoughts on the soundtrack to 2016's Shin Godzilla, featuring new music composed by Shiro Sagisu and old music composed by Akira Ifukube. Unfortunately, this is not an official CD review because I didn't get the CD. I listened to the music on Spotify, so I can't tell you anything about the CD's art design, the booklet, if the booklet contains lyrics. I did, however, where'd it go? I did get the movie out of the library again so that I could watch it and refresh my memory of how these songs are placed in the film. Got the Blu-ray this time instead of the DVD. And, this was my 4th time watching Shin Godzilla, which I have reviewed, and I can confidently report that each time I see it, I like it better than I did before. With each viewing, I have a better grasp of what the film was going for, and a better appreciation for how it was made. The film, which disregards previous Godzilla movies, is unique in countless ways, and it's only logical that its score should be unique too. It uses old and new music, it has varied orchestration, it mixes styles, and it incorporates a choral component with lyrics sung in English. Track 1 is titled Persecution of the Masses, and it's the music we hear as we get our first really good look at this bizarre monstrosity from the sea that's pushing its awkward way forward onto land and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. It starts with this heavy, dramatic keyboard, dun 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 dun, and it's joined by layers and layers of strings. Dun 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 dun. Something like that. There's something a little classical about it. It's very precise, it's intense. Even without visuals, you know something bad is happening. In a way, it reminds me of Tubular Bells, the theme from The Exorcist. I love how the strings just keep on building. They're playing this melody, the cellos are doing it, and then it moves up an octave, the violins come in, and they do it, and it's surging upward. It reaches its peak, and then it comes down, and it's like something's pending, like we're introducing something new here, a new idea, wait for it, and they are doing what turns out to be the melody of the vocal component. Bum 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 bum. It's a little low. And then the choir comes in singing. I'm not gonna do a bass voice. Persecution of the masses. The vocals, they throw me off a bit because, for one thing, they're in English, and in a movie where most of the dialogue is in Japanese, there is a little dialogue in English, and there's a smidgen of German. I just would expect the singing in the score to be in Japanese, but nope, it's in English. so you can kind of understand what they're saying sometimes. For another thing, I just don't expect this kind of score to have a choral component. And third, persecution of the masses seems an odd choice of words to describe a Godzilla attack. Persecution. But right away, we know this score is going to be a little different. I like this track. I like the urgency of the piano and strings. It's one that wakes you up, and so it's well placed as the very first track on the album. Track 2 is Godzilla Comes Ashore, and it's the first use of Ifukube music taken from the original 1954 Gojira. Not only is it a fan-pleasing use of Ifukube music, the context is appropriate as well. It's the music that starts with deep brass notes that seem to scrape the bottom of the floor. They're so low. It also sounds kind of like flatulence, and they're accompanied by ominous notes way down there at the dark end of the piano. This is the music that plays over Godzilla's stunning evolution to an upright creature. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom. Track 3 is titled 11174 Rhythm and Melody Demo. There are some odd titles on this soundtrack. They almost sound like they were working titles and they didn't get their fancier names before the CD was released. This is a jazzy, up-tempo piece with an emphasis on what I'm going to assume is the timpani, the kettle drum. It starts with the heavy percussion, and then there's lighter percussion added in, and then there's more heavy piano. Really someone banging on a keyboard, and it's actually quite discordant. And then in the second half, it takes on this kind of dizzying quality, where the music is like da 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 da. Just listening to it, you can tell, oh, something's going on. It feels like chase music or the setting of a trap to catch a bad guy. In the film, this is the first helicopter offensive, which proves fruitless because they hesitate over the presence of civilians and Godzilla gets away. Track 4 is called Early Morning from Tokyo Short. It's a light jazz number that plays in the background of a news report montage in the film. It's nondescript and deceptively casual. Track 5 is Back to Business with 11174 Light Edit Demo. Again, at the beginning of it, someone's really beaten the heck out of the timpani, and we have more dark keyboard, and then some more percussion comes in that sounds more electronic or synthesized and gives the track kind of a 90s action movie feel. Track 6 is listed as EM20 Rhythm GZM. I don't know what all that means, but this is the first appearance of a motif that we hear several times in the film. It does start similar to the 11174 tracks, heavy on the timpani, but it's different. This is a little more rhythmic. This is, I'm going to say jazzy. I'm not sure if that's really the right word to describe it, but it's jazzy offensive music reflecting the assembly of the ragtag team that will study this unknown specimen, and this is the main character Yaguchi's first big independent action. So I would describe the tracks that have EM20 GZM as being the protagonist's theme. The protagonists, I'm saying that plural, being Yaguchi and his team. This music, compared to what came before, is more fast-paced, and it almost sounds like it's kind of akin to Mission Impossible music. It's dark, but it's upbeat at the same time. I had made the note that it sounded like Mission Impossible music, and I totally understand why I had that impression. Mission Impossible music. Dun, dun dun dun. EM20 rhythm GZZ. This starts with bum 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 bum. More percussion is then added. There's a little drum roll, and then it sounds kind of like bongos or something. I'm not an expert on percussion at all, but it's very like especially the original Mission Impossible theme from the TV show. So I'm wondering if maybe the similarity isn't a coincidence, if maybe the Mission Impossible theme was an inspiration for some of the music here. Track 7 is EM20 Jerry GZM. It's very similar to the last one, but different. This one's even more upbeat with more percussion. It's more vibrant, I would say. You could probably dance to it if you wanted to. It's got a rhythm to it. It's got a good beat. There's some of that. And it's interesting that these parts in the score are all very familiar, but each one varies slightly, and they seem to build on each other. Track 8 is Return of Godzilla, Ifukube's music from 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla. It's very exciting when watching the film to hear this familiar music. The old Ifukube stuff is all rough and raggedy sounding, at least when you're listening to the soundtrack separately. You can't really tell when watching the movie. And it's like it was stripped straight from an old print of the movie and placed in the soundtrack rather than re-recorded by a fresh orchestra. It at least sounds that way. I don't know if that's what they did, or if they did in fact re-record it. Again, the context here is a perfect match, because in the film, this is the return of Godzilla. Godzilla resurfacing, coming ashore, now double the size. This particular music is the bum. That's too low. Bum, 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 bum. And then bum 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 bum. If you haven't seen Shin Godzilla, Godzilla in this movie is capable of rapid, independent evolution. He goes through various forms throughout the movie, and in this scene he achieves his fourth form, which is really the one that we recognize the most, the one that we say, yep, that's Godzilla right there. The one that we probably expected to see from the very beginning, but instead we got this freakish thing. When he achieves this fourth form, that's when they cue the Godzilla March, the iconic da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Track 9 is Godzilla Appears, Ifukube's music taken from 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla. This is great. Combining old and new music, I think, is a fantastic way to represent what this film is doing. It brings back Godzilla, a monster that's been around for many years, since 1954, but everything about him is wildly different. He's brought to life in a way that we've never seen before, so the presence of Ifukube's music, something familiar that we all recognize and love, acts kind of like a gateway to the unfamiliar, the new and experimental vision. Track 10 is titled Black Angels, more specifically, Black Angels, parentheses, Fob 10, 1211. I don't know what that's all about, but I have a particular liking for the Black Angels track. It starts with a huge blah, blah, after, and this I will have no voice by the time I'm done with this, and this plays right after the order is given to commence the attack on Godzilla. The military connotation is strong here. It starts out bold and brave, first with lower brass, like the music is toughening itself up, and then it dramatically debuts the main melody of the piece with the string section. This track, especially with the snare drum rolls, kind of reminds me of Danny Elfman's Batman theme. Ba 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 ba. It's hard to do this a cappella because there's also a harmony that's playing in it. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. There's a lot of layers. Like the first track, it emphasizes the keyboard and strings and a vocal component. I don't know what they're singing here, but it sure is intense and deliberate. And then toward the end of the Black Angels track, there's an abrupt shift. Everything kind of crashes together. Bum, 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 bum. Reminds me just a little bit of the Phantom of the Opera. In this moment where the intensity is reaching its peak is when they realize their bullets have no effect on Godzilla. Listened to separately, the music here almost feels emotional, and the brass comes in and does something that reminds me of the main theme from the 1958 movie The Fly. Just pulling out obscure references. I can't reproduce it right, so I'm just gonna have to play it. And then with a crash of cymbals, the music crescendos, and I think this might be my favorite track. In the film, the next track begins almost immediately after, as very dramatic, track 11, titled Fob 01. And this is as the Prime Minister authorizes the use of all their heavy firepower, and yet still they do no damage. This track is really a continuation of the previous track. It's like that one was Act 1, curtain on Act 1, and now this is Act 2, and it's building and building again. Track 12, titled Defeat is No Option, parentheses 1197, is, well, it sounds a bit like the Psycho theme at the beginning, with strings relentlessly stabbing as the cabinet and the military realize they're in big trouble. Again, the choir joins in, and the predominant feeling here is a mounting sense of unease. Godzilla is making his way to Tokyo, power's going out, they need to evacuate millions of people, but there just isn't enough time. Bomb, 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 da, 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 da. Is that what I think it is? Shiro Sugisu, I see what you did there. Then the United States launches a strike, and it's successful in that it hits Godzilla and causes a wave of blood to splash down at the camera, which is nasty. And that's when Godzilla throws his head back and emits a roar of pain. And it's as his dorsal fins begin to glow and his mouth opens wide that the next track begins, track 13, titled Who Will Know. It's actually titled Who Will Know, parentheses, 24 Big Slow, but just ignore the parentheses. Here it is, the big standout piece from the score, a tragic, operatic lament. The meaning of it may be easily misinterpreted if you don't know whose perspective the singing represents. Godzilla's destruction of Tokyo seems to be an act of retaliation in response to the pain he feels. This is the first time we see his atomic breath, which comes out as smoky vomit and then fire that spreads through the city, and we first see his atomic energy beams bursting from his mouth and his dorsal fins. And because there is so much fire and horror and destruction, you could get the impression that the singing is the lament of the innocent victims, those millions of people who were not able to get away in time. However, as I understand it, the main singer is not the voice of the people, but the voice of Godzilla, a beast in agony, out of place and out of time. It's a huge, misshapen creature that really should not exist, should not be alive, has no sense of belonging anywhere, whose existence is dominated by pain and anguish. That first primary line, "If I die in this world, who will know something of me?" is the existential question of a lonely being that longs for some sense of purpose and some connection, but there is no satisfying answer. Now, of course, if that's a little too bizarre for you, you like your Godzilla without philosophical anthropomorphism, that's perfectly understandable, and you can just take it as it is. And on its own, this piece is really something. The most effective moment, I think, is at 1 minute and 30 seconds in, when the soprano line soars and then the violins cascade downward. It is a beautiful moment, but there's an ache to it. I can't possibly sing this part for you, so I'll play it. The music ends as Godzilla turns away from the flames, turns his back on the devastation he's caused, and comes to rest. A moment later in the film, we hear track 14, SS 103 GZM, parentheses, famously, which is a simple, somber piano track dominated by a crying violin or viola. This plays as our characters, those who are left, take stock of where they stand. Track 15, titled EM20 Godzilla, is a resurgence of the motif we heard earlier on. It's the task force getting back to work on studying Godzilla and figuring out how to stop him. Definitely sounds like things are gonna turn around now music. Track 16 is EM20CH Alterna 1, which is more of the same, but this time with electric guitars. At first I thought this was an odd fit, but it does actually work in the film as it ramps up the energy and momentum. Our task force here has just gotten an idea and is putting the plan in motion, and so this has an energetic drive to it. You can definitely rock out to this if you want, but you gotta do it fast because these tracks are short. EM20 Godzilla is only 1 minute and 2 seconds long. EM20CH Alterna 1 is 59 seconds. Track 17 is titled EM20CH Alterna 3. I don't know what happened to Alterna 2. I guess it didn't make the cut. Again, we have that timpani heavy riff, that dun 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 dun, but now with bass guitars. It's really injecting a rock feel into the score. This is a clear turning point. This is playing over a scene where they figure out how to read the map, and that leads to further revelations about Godzilla's makeup. Track 18, titled EM20CH Alterna 4, is similar again, but this time it's a little more funky. It has different guitars, and that... Should I try to imitate it? I know that's terrible. Okay, it's that funky sound. I call it the I always call it the shaft effect. I just sound like a bad cat. Track 19. Let's move on from that before I embarrass myself any further. Track 19 is one of Akira Ifukube's most recognizable military marches, the one that debuted in 1959's Battle in Outer Space, which is the title of the track. This also appeared in later films in the Godzilla series. You know the one. The music moves quickly from one track to the next at this point. Track 20 is titled Under a Burning Sky, parentheses 11174 Battle. And it is exactly what the parenthetical suggests, battle music. It's very cinematic in sound and intensity. This is the first deployment of the cranes, if you're familiar with the plot. It takes on a more triumphant sound because the plan is working, but Godzilla's not so easy to put down. He never is. Track 21, Under a Burning Sky, parentheses 11174 Orchestra, is pretty much a sequel to the previous track. It's what plays over the train bombs and the second deployment of cranes. I really like the last 45 seconds or so of this one. Everything goes a little crazy and it sounds like something from a high-octane sci-fi movie or space fantasy. It's kind of noisy, but I like it. In the film, there's been one piece of music after another building and building and building to this. And then there's a noticeable silence here as everyone processes what just occurred. In a way, it's kind of played for laughs. And then there's track 22, titled Omni 00, which is totally different from anything else that's come before. It's a low-key track, like the dust is settling and everyone's checking that their limbs are still intact and we've all made it through okay, which is kind of what's going on in the film, but it's not quite that cozy and cliche. There's a sustained chord of resolution here, and then some rich, resonant notes from the strings. Add some twinkly notes and a little harp, and it definitely sounds like all is well, and we're ready to move on and rebuild, and we're all gonna live happily ever after. But if you've seen the movie, you know it doesn't quite end on that calm, feel-good note. The very last scene plays out in absolute silence as the camera goes to Godzilla for a last look and pans up Godzilla's tail to reveal the freaky, morphing nightmare that's at the very end of it. Whatever that's supposed to be! And then the credits roll with a medley of Ifukube hits. Track 23 is the beloved main title from the original 1954 Godzilla. Track 24 is the main title from 1964's Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. That's the one that has the trumpet. Wah, 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 wah. Track 25 is main title from 1965's Invasion of Astro Monster version 1, and track 26 is main title from Invasion of Astro Monster version 2. Version 1 is the cheerful military march. Version 2 is music that I don't associate with Invasion of Astro Monster. I associate it more with 1995's Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. It's the stately and ominous march with the flutter-tonguing trumpets that you hear as burning Godzilla comes ashore in that movie's opening sequence. I do appreciate the use of Ifukube compositions from various films over the years, not just acknowledging the first movie, but the worthy sequels as well. It's an exciting tribute to the series as a whole, and a gratifying nod to the fans. Overall, I like this score. It's dynamic, it's got some tracks that really stand out, especially the operatic ones, and the music for the I was gonna say the action scenes, but it's more more the taking action scenes, has a lot of energy. It's got a chaotic drive. It's not a score I would choose for background music, I don't think. It's not relaxing by any means, but there are some tracks I have on my soundtrack playlist. Persecution of the Masses, Who Will Know, Black Angels, which I think is my favorite track. Those are on my playlist. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the Shin Godzilla soundtrack, if you've listened to it separately, or even if you've just heard it as it is in the movie, that's fine too. And I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching.